Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk Pulling Fits and Opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on some social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. We're going to get right into the meat and potatoes. We got a special guest hailing from DC by the name of Adrian Webb, the Lost Boy Raw, right? Go ahead and say hello.
Hello. How we doing, y'all?
It's good to finally get you on, man. I know time and time zone difference, schedules. You're a busy guy. Finally got you on though. I'm pretty excited to hear your story, your experience, adversity, resilience, all that good jazz.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on.
No problem, man. Yeah, the time zone thing is always an obstacle that requires overcoming. But we figured it out. Look at us. Early in the morning.
That's right. Did you get your cup of coffee?
We're good to go.
There it is.
We're set.
There it is. It looks like you got it looks like you got a nice little setup there going. What's going on?
Oh, yeah, I do. So me and my friends started a podcast, talk about science fiction primarily, but this is my home office. I work remotely for the State Department for, 3 days a week. So I needed a nice little area of my own, not to be harassed by my dog or cat and wife. So, little fortress of solitude.
That's good.
Yeah, it's pretty, got a good view out here, by the way. There's a nice little river right behind my apartment building. It's lovely. But yeah, man, where should we start?
Well, first, I didn't even know you had a podcast. You better send me the link.
Oh man, it's not even edited yet. I started one early on in around I think like 2015 or so. But I got 5 deep and then had to start my applications for grad school. So everything else kind of fell away. And honestly, it wasn't that impressive. And most of the time it was just me and my friends being drunk. Those conversations were not incredibly stimulating. Funny, at least. My dad liked them. He thought it was a blast. But this one's going to be primarily just about Star Wars and various other things within science fiction. I'm a big fan of science fiction, and I think we've all been kind of overtaken by politics the last couple of years. So if I can talk about anything with my friends, it's not me like freaked out about current political climates. That's probably more healthy.
Yeah, right. Keeps the hair and the line going forward, not backward.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, man. But I guess I can start. Well, so I got out in 2013. I joined the Marine Corps in 2009. I was a communicator. I was a tactical switchboard operator or field wireman, which I don't think they have anymore, which is probably a blessing because that job was kind of useless. You just ended up doing, data stuff anyway, because it's all voice over IP stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I got sent to a unit called Combat Assault Battalion in Okinawa, which also doesn't exist anymore. Probably for the best, given that we had like 35 tracks and only 10 of them worked at any given time. And so we just cannibalized the rest of them to make sure those 10 worked. And we started selling them, I think, to like Thailand and Korea towards the end of its life. But it was a cool spot, man. I got to go to Jungle Warfare School, which was a blast. You got to go to leader school. They sent me to a machine gunner school because we didn't have enough machine gunners. That was a blast. I genuinely missed that part of the Marine Corps, definitely not being on duty like yourself currently. It's probably the worst part. Yeah. I guess I was still talking about the Marine Corps experience I had. I guess we start after the Marine Corps. I was stationed at Camp Pendleton at MCY G6. That was a cool spot. I got to work 12 hours, 12 on, 12 off for 6 months towards the end of my enlistment. And honestly, it was not that bad. I mean, I was a watch officer and I got to do like high level IT work for the entire west coast of the Marine Corps, including, Hawaii. It was a blast. I essentially had access to every internet port and phone, and I could disable anyone's certs, on the west coast, which is a lot of fun. I mean, most of the time it was just dealing with like power outages and construction, or like IT issues when a sergeant major didn't know that his computer got unplugged and he was just freaking out that he can't turn his computer on. That kind of thing, that kind of fun stuff. But it was a good spot, and I made a lot of good, got a lot of good connections there, good experience overall. I ended up almost being homeless as a result of that, though, because I came back to my unit with a month with a month left from that little IA, and they didn't let me try to like go find a house to live in. It's like, yo, I'm getting out in like 26 days. Like I have to check out and turn all my gear in, and then go find a place to live. Otherwise, I'm gonna be homeless. Because I don't like. I grew up in Utah, and I'm moving to Long Beach to go to school, and they just didn't understand the context or the requirement. And honestly, they could have been better leaders. That's just the truth. And I don't know. I remember the day I got out of the Marine Corps, I just like went to, I knew it was my last day. So like, all right, I went in to S1. I got my package. They signed it. I'm like, is that it? He's like, yeah, what do you want? Confetti to fall from the ceiling? I'm like, oh shit, okay. It's like, all right. It's like, people ask this question a lot. It's like, yeah, it's pretty underwhelming, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, it is. All right. So I went and packed my car, and then I drove to San Diego to meet my friend for some drinks. And I'm sitting there like 4 beers deep, and I get a call from my staff sergeant at the time. He's like, Webb, where are you? What do you mean? It's like, why aren't you information? It's like, dude, I got out of the Marine Corps today. I'm in San Diego. Like, I'm already, do you want to come back and hold a little ceremony for you? I'm like, dude, how did you not know that I'm getting out of the Marine Corps today? It's like, no, man, honestly, that's it's like, if there's anything you need to say to me, you probably missed an opportunity. It's like, I'm probably never going to see you again. It's like, oh, okay, well, all right. And then everybody texted me afterwards, like, oh man, we didn't know. Like, I told you for a month straight that I had to go find someplace to live that you didn't let me do. So I ended up finding a spot in Lakewood, which is like a Long Beach suburban neighborhood. Beautiful, actually, Beaverville. It's like, it's the neighborhood America grows up on, Right? I'm moving into, funny enough, like a grow op. Because there was a Marine that I met. I was like, hey man, you're cool. Like, yeah, everything, all the paperwork straight, we're good. He's like, yeah, okay. It's, certified by the state of California. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I don't really give a shit. I just need a place to live. That same week, my car gets totaled. So I ended up having no car, new spot. I had no belongings. I was sleeping on my yoga mat on the floor of this, in this bedroom. And then I skateboarded.
Nothing new.
Yeah, no, I was totally fine with it. I skateboarded to and from school. Everything kind of worked out well until, the sheriff's department raided my house. And that didn't go. I mean, honestly, everything was fine. Everything went completely fine. Nobody broke any laws except for the police. They let me go a couple hours, and I just like, all right, I'm gonna get out of this situation, move to another spot. And I that's kind of when everything kind of stabilized, and I got a bed for the first time in like a year. And everything kind of worked out from there. But my initial goal was to study philosophy out of the Marine Corps, and primarily because I went into the Marine Corps at 17 years old, and you're familiar with boot camp. It definitely is it's a hell of a time. What I didn't understand about the real world, I was feeling very alienated. So I didn't expect to feel such kind of like isolation. Like, and also nobody really tells you about like leaving the Marine Corps. And I tell people all the time, especially during this research, I was like it's harder to leave than going in. What they don't because you don't have a group, there's no community for you. It's like everything you know about yourself is in opposition to everybody that's above or below you. So your entire strategy for communication, interpersonally, is very regimented, and you don't really recognize that until like you're actually with a lot more civilians, and it takes a little more time. But I'll tell you, the first day I got into school was a communications class, ironically, and I'm like, I'm Sergeant Webb, like I'm a fucking regulator, I get it, and these two girls, probably like 17, like it's the very beginning, very opening statement from the professor. They're talking in front of me, and the Marine in me didn't know not to tell them to shut the fuck up. So I did. It's like, hey, the instructor's talking to you, right? I mean, you could have like everybody shut up, because I was so used to yelling at Marines that, and they're like, oh. And afterwards, I'm proud of myself about this, by the way. It worked. It worked perfectly. The professor continued, and afterwards she pulled me aside. She goes, hey, did you just get out of the Marine Corps or the military? I'm like, yeah, I did. Actually, I just got out of the Marine Corps in Camp Pendleton. She's like, okay, well, so from now on, don't tell any other students to shut the fuck up, please. It's like, oh, well, they were talking when you were talking. Yes, but it's my classroom. You need to, like, you're a student, you need to, like, just pay attention. It's like, oh, okay. And that kind of was, like, the first moment where I realized, like, okay, I've been, like, institutionalized in a way. and there's no one really talking about how to deal with this. So I took it upon myself to
Let me before I lose my train of thought. But I tell you what, I was talking to a guy named Elijah Main. He said the same thing. We babysit young individuals to come in, paperwork, this, that, the other, get them fed or whatever the case, whatever have you, just to get them to recruit training. And then you transition and nobody gives a F.
No.
You figure it out. That's the difference in between getting in and getting out. It is crazy. I'll tell you, to your point, nobody tells you the realities of civilians versus prior service and telling civilians to shut the F up. Well, it went well though. I would have been like, teacher, but I can't pay attention when people are talking in front of me.
It's like, everything, made my skin crawl, honestly. Because, civilians are savages. They have no culture. They have no discipline in their bodies, zero bearing. So it was kind of definitely an adjustment period there. But I mean, after that, I struggled for a little bit. And I started noticing some Marines that I went to school with. I eventually transferred to Cal State Long Beach from the community college. And I met a dude in a summer class named Justin Governal. He's actually kind of popular. He was on Naked and Afraid recently. He worked at Black Rifle Coffee Company for a bit. He and I were talking one day about, I'm like, hey man, do you want to drive you to your car? Cal State parking lot is enormous, and it's like up 2.5 miles. It's like a 30-minute walk to your car. Especially the time we were going to school, so you had to go all the way in the back. I drove him there. We just hanging out and like talking for like 45 minutes. I'm like, hey dude, like, can I, like, do you want to, he asked me if I wanted to go to his gym. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Cause I asked him why he seemed so like even keeled and like cool still, given that he was like a scout sniper and heavily traumatized. So but he took back and I went to training with him and I met a bunch of more Marines. And the gym itself is run by a former machine gunner. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like there's like a little enclave of Marines that are just, beating the hell out of each other. This is great. Let's do this. A little while later, I started thinking, like, if I go to grad school, like I want to get my master's, and I got my master's in applied anthropology, and I changed I'm an archaeologist also by training as well. So that's what my current job is. I asked the gym, like, hey man, would you mind if I study your gym and like use it as my master's thesis? He's like, yeah, sure. So I essentially started to be able to go for free, shut at Subfighter MMA in Orange County. It's a good spot, good people. But what I kind of recognized early on was that like having that kind of a community and it being like heavily militant and, like physical and dangerous, and requires a lot of discipline, and I guess like some regiment and some scheduling. You really had to like be a little more disciplined with how you like behave during the week, because it all just takes away from your training. So a lot of these guys competed. A lot of these guys are really good fighters anyway. And Justin went pro, I think. He fought Bellator and just a solid human being. Hilarious now. He's doing comedy, which I think is perfect. He's a funny dude. But
yeah.
But upon my study, like most of the literature I read about like reintegration for veterans is just there seemed to be a real like miscategorization of like our behaviors, and some of that I think is due to, feminist literature taking everything over ultimately, which is and it failed to recognize like positive like male characteristics or traits. And in my thesis, I brought up a term. I had to redefine the term. Hypermasculinity, because it was too often that like toxic masculinity and just general masculine behaviors were kind of like blended together. But if you just took the behaviors separated from masculine for the framework, whatever, they're just antisocial behaviors. So like, it doesn't matter who exhibits these behaviors; they're just bad for people and communication and society as a whole. But like, you want the good ones. You want them to be, risk taking, because we have firefighters and Marines, right? You want them to be disciplined. You want them to have the ability to be dangerous and, physically violent or physically strong. These are all, in the Marine Corps, these are all things that we value, and encourage. So when you come out of the military, for instance, like not only are those behaviors that you've been perfecting, like not encouraged, they're actively discouraged from the communities around you're in. So, and the gym is one place to definitely exhibit those behaviors,
To your point, Webb, by talking to a guy named Seamus O'Connor out in Germany. He said the same thing. He was actually doing a study on weight training and anxiety and the triggers it has for prior service military. And the one thing he noticed was that weightlifting in moderation is like a drug. It releases some endorphins in the brain and allows alpha type service members to, because most of us are, generally speaking, kind of get a high or release some, type of thing. And so it does the body good, does the mind good. And I think to your point, your transition, you find a good spot and it helped you ease, the toxic masculinity, so to speak.
Yeah. I'll tell you, man, I don't feel any less of a psycho. And I just learned that like there's just a place where you can do those things. And I don't know. I have this mantra sometimes when I'm at work with civilians, and I just have to think to myself, like, okay, the only thing keeping this person alive is my discipline, because I could just kill you, and I wouldn't even think about it. I mean, nobody's fast enough to stop me.
My goodness.
I'll tell you what, I work with a bunch of suits and ties.
Did you get into, so you went, got your master's, and then how did you get to the DOD and doing your job?
Well, I work for the Department of State.
Department of State, excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, I got in on a fellowship for, I highly recommend this to any veterans with a graduate degree of any kind. But it's called the Veteran Innovation Partnership. It was started by John Kerry, because he's a veteran, and he wanted to see, like, hey, these guys are patriotic. We want to get them into our government because they actually care about, the future of the United States. They already have skin in the game, from their service. So I got into that, and I was asked to join 3 different offices. The one that I really wanted was the one that wanted me the most, which was the Cultural Heritage Center. And we do international cultural preservation, which really just means like we fund archaeological sites or old museums or help do reconstructions on buildings that are historically important. And we work a lot with UNESCO and a bunch of other things. But my background in IT is probably the only reason I have that job. We have 9 PhD archaeologists in my office. I have a master's, and I was a field tech archaeologist. So I just wandered around the Southwest looking for stuff and like making maps and cataloging those things. But they're the real deal. And I mostly do, outreach efforts and work a lot with our interagency teams. So we work with the FBI, because ultimately a lot of law enforcement and like counterterrorism functions around the trafficking of stolen artwork or stolen goods or anywhere you can really fund black money stuff. So
you're definitely selling it for sure. I like it.
Yeah, it's a cool job, man. That's why I like it quite a bit. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon unless, Elon has his way and gets rid of half the government, which might be
for the better of the U.S.
Yeah, I can't, like, what am I willing to sacrifice so that my country does well? Probably everything, So I get it, but yeah.
Hey, let me ask you something, Webb. So you're doing good now, but I was talking. I get the privilege of talking to a lot of service members, active duty and veterans alike. And I was talking to one a couple weeks back, maybe 2 weeks back. He said he's been out for 20 plus years now, but he still struggles till this day. Is that the same thing for you? You're still you're maybe not struggling externally, but internally, you have some struggles getting that, chip off the shoulder, so to speak, or transitioning properly, or you still have some weight that you're carrying in terms of service and now civilian?
Yeah, I'd say, it never goes away. Like, I don't wake up in the morning and don't think that I'm still not in the Marine Corps. Like, my body and brain is hardwired for, a uniform. Like, I feel like suit and ties are silly in comparison to what I once wore, I don't really have very many friends. I have one friend who's out here from my old unit that's an hour away. We get to hang out occasionally. No, man, I don't think it's going to get, it doesn't go away. It just gets easier. And whether or not that's, you're trying to figure out something else to do with your life that is somewhat important to you. The greatest thing I've ever done is join the Marine Corps. Like, my master's degree was easy in comparison. And also, I'm not nearly as proud of it as I was, when I got promoted to corporal, for instance. Right. That was a hell of a thing for me. But nothing ever felt better than the moto run in boot camp. Like you're just trying to like chase the dragon in whatever way you can. But ultimately, the sense of like the lack of community I've had has been one of the hardest things. And for a while there, I ended up moving in with another guy from our unit when I was in school, and we stayed in the same house for like 6 years. And that was actually really good, because we were always bouncing ideas off each other. We knew each other well enough from, being in the same platoon that it all kind of, like, he's my brother. So it was really nice to have that kind of close connection. And I don't think without that, I think I'd probably be, I don't know, dead or in jail or, you know, other things.
Oh,
Like it's such an important, I mean, I'm a
that's
wild person,
that's powerful.
and yeah, and it doesn't, like, the risk-taking behaviors you take, you know, because you're trained to do them, don't exactly work on the outside of the military. And there's no boundaries. There's no boundary conditions in which, like, kind of force you in one direction. Like, you kind of, it's like a free for all. Any decision you make could be the wrong one. And like, without other Marines around, it often felt like I was walking through like a forest in the dark. You know, just trying to feel around through the trees, trying to figure out like what is a good solution. And every time I met a Marine or I met somebody in school, they just got out. I was like, "Yo, do you have friends? Where's your friend group? Are they close? Like, you still talk to Marines? Like, if you need some friends, like, we'll hang out." You know, and I tried to get as many as I could to, you know, just for the first few years. Like, once you get like in the rhythm of school and, you know, getting paid by the, you know, GI Bill, you know, you kind of got a good, you kind of got a good future sight ahead of you. You know, you kind of plan towards some kind of goal. You know, it's like chow to chow, but instead of that, it's like degree to degree, job to job. Like, what kind of things can you do to like meter your progress in your future? Because otherwise, like, you're just going to be chilling. And a lot of dudes I know just got, like, I definitely struggle with a little bit of alcoholism, but like, it's the gun club that drinks. So like, it's as cultural as it is, you know, probably not as like functional. But I knew dudes like were getting out and were like high on ecstasy in the middle of the day. You know, I'm like, okay, you got to stop that. It's Wednesday, you know?
It's only hump day. Stop.
Yeah, dude. It's like, we got, like, I was like, I know you have to work the rest of the week, but like, you got to, like, because without the lack of structure that you had from the Marine Corps, and it's such a weird thing knowing that, like, my day was scheduled around like waking up at 5 and then being done with my day at 8 p.m., you know, and like, and knowing that everything between that, there was something I had to be doing and getting out. I feel my days with all kinds of shit now. I mean, mostly I'm, you know, I read constantly. I'm writing a science fiction novel myself, you know.
Right.
And yeah, I keep busy. I go to the gym 3-4 times a week. Like, there's not, you know, it's just a never-ending struggle, you know. But I mean, I even thought about getting a direct commission in the Army as because the Monuments Men is re-stood up. So I thought about it. I don't know. I don't want to keep looking backwards for comfort and safety, you know. It's like, yeah. It's like,
Interesting. But, well, do you think that maybe you got out too soon? That's why you're still looking backwards?
you know, I do think that sometimes, but I mean, also, my back is wrecked.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
I'm 5'4", right? Like, I'm a little guy, but
Wow.
like, I weigh
You
180
look great in
pounds.
this video, though. You look like you're swole diesel.
Oh, I am. I'm jacked. I weigh almost 200 pounds. So like, I'm having a good time. I weightlift and I, you know, but it's just a matter of like looking back. I wish I had the body I have now when I was when I was an NCO. That would have been very valuable. But you know, the tempo of operation stuff, like, you have no time to go, you know, weightlift in the gym. No one's going to teach me to deadlift when we have to go like plan for an assault on the beach.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it wasn't really like, that wasn't really a high priority at the time. For a lot of my leaders. And like, also, they didn't know anything. Like, fitness has really gotten scientific for the general population for the last, since I've been out. But, you know, we have like complete morons trying to tell me that I need to be able to carry a 210-pound guy when I weighed 120 pounds up a goddamn hill. So I'm like, in the rain. I'm like, hey man, like, this is probably unsafe. And so I did slip and I fucking herniated three out of 4 discs in my lower back.
Good for
So,
you,
like,
Webb. Good for you.
yeah. And like, I remember thinking like, this is stupid. I remember then I got put on light duty and they're like, why are you on light duty? I'm like, have you seen the images of my spine? It's like, this is remember that time you made me do that thing? And they didn't want to take any responsibility for that, of course, but you know, at least the VA did.
The VA did, though. You're good. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, let me ask you something. I know, take it first. I know I didn't say it, but, and I'm sure you haven't heard it, or you have excessively. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it. You came, what, you said 2009? So that's a year before me, and then you got out right when I was in right when I was in Afghanistan, 2013, you said?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you for your service, man. I don't know what was the catalyst for you to get out, but
Well,
too bad
I can
you
answer.
didn't stay in.
Yeah.
I can answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. Like, I was trying to, so at the time, like, when I first injured myself, I ended up getting like I was on Okinawa. So like the hospital is 1 hour, or it's an hour away, like, one way. So like, a half of the workday, I'd have to go, you know, leave my shop and go to the hospital. and have them do like injections to my back, and which worked great, but they had to be done like twice a week for like 6 months on top of like physical therapy. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm willing to do this and like get better and then re-enlist. But the attitude at the time was that I'm wasting time. Like I'm trying to like linger. I'm like, dude, like I don't like I was a pretty stellar Marine. I've always been pretty good at excelling in whatever I'm at. But like I got to corporal in a year and a half. Like I picked up sergeant shortly after that, but then didn't get promoted because I was on limited duty and it didn't look okay. It's like, you're on limited duty, it doesn't look right, in front of the junior Marines to have you promoted a sergeant in front of everyone else. I'm like, I earned this score a year ago. You get that. So like, this means nothing. I was injured after the score was achieved. It's like, so like, it doesn't make, and they held it off for long enough to where my score zeroed out. And then I didn't get promoted until the month I got out, and they sent my warrant to Mar Forces Reserve, and they sent it to my house. So I'm like, fantastic. That's real cool.
Nice. Yeah. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. And, I mean, those kind of things, like, yo, I would have given far more than just my back, and I don't know, I feel like I got treated very badly at the end. And like, I was a stellar Marine. Like I was like, I was a leader.
Interesting. Let me ask you, we're limited on time. You got all day because, I mean, I told you my schedule today is going to be busy. So let me ask you, I got one question and two follow-ons, obviously, to kind of bring it back together. Well, one, sustaining the transformation, right? It looks like there's a reason why E5s and below get out. I, as a more senior enlisted Marine, would like to blame my core group of Marines, which is the staff NCO. Here's why. Because you have just mentioned, based off your experience, and I'm sure it's generally the consensus around the group, is that my leadership sucks. They don't care. They only care about me. Careerism. They go to PME school. They get to go do all these cool things for themselves so that they can get promoted. But when it comes down to the deck plates and the troops, is what it is. They don't sustain the transformation. My God, Washington. Oh, dear. There it is. They like to conserve energy. I apologize. No worries. So, sustaining the transformation. In a nutshell, it's my responsibility as you were my Marine to get you to re-enlist. That is my goal. Why? Because I need the best possible talent to stay in so that the organization can function correctly. We didn't do that with you. It seems like you were tainted, and that was the reason why. Yes? No? Maybe so?
Yeah, I would have stayed in the Marine Corps my entire life had, if I would have just been able to let me heal. Hey, man, if it takes 6 months, take 6 months. That's just the nature of having a spine injury. I didn't choose this, right? Like, it wasn't like it's kind of forced upon me. So being treated as if like this was a choice that I made to be injured was so insane to me. I was like, yo, guys, I was pretty much I was one of the stars of my unit at the time. So to have a coin flip that direction really broke my heart. So I love the Marine Corps.
Absolutely. Let me, that's true. It's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. It's something valuable and priceless. I mean, there's a price to pay. There's always a price to pay for some things. But I got to ask, you said you struggle with transition. You're out. It's been years. You still deal with it to this day. You got to find, what is that? What's the word I'm looking for? You're finding, what is that? Man, I can't think of the word right now. But you found a group of other people, like-minded individuals, veterans, to ease the transition for you. In terms of mental health for you, you got some adversity thrown at you, and when life throws something at you, it definitely shows you who you are as an individual. You're obviously successful. I can see you here. You're not in jail. You're not dying. I'm not doing a podcast with somebody in jail. So it's a good thing that, adversity hits you in the face. Outside of community, what's something intangible that you can provide to the listeners? Hey, look, this is what helped me individually, right? Outside of community.
I don't know. I definitely, it's hard to say, man, because I think, ultimately one of the main reasons we struggle so hard when we get out is because of our community. But I'd say that, yeah, man, I don't know. It's hard to say, because honestly, man, I have if I didn't have school to focus on individually, if I didn't have a goal or some kind of plan to execute, I would just be drunk all the time, and absent of that, because, when you're in, you have the mission goals, you have, your whatever your squad platoon's doing, you have, whatever the larger unit or the, division's trying to do and accomplish. And I mean, that's definitely more easily said now with like Third Meth doing all that it's doing in the the literal scheduling and whatnot. So, but I think the best thing you can do is like just build a plan and, meet your reasonable goals, but don't shoot too high that it's impossible to do, but also do something challenging enough to where it will force you to contend with yourself and force you to flex those same muscles you learned in the Marine Corps. Like I would wake up at 8 a.m. and I would study and research for roughly 12 hours, and I'd take a break in the middle to work out. But then at 8:30, I'd be done and I'd cook dinner and I could hang out. But you can ask my wife now; she hated that time period because I was a slave to sitting in front of my computer and reading all these books and things. At some point, I was reading 9 books a month for like 2 years. That was a lot, and also the most frustrating part.
I struggle reading this, and it's like 50 pages at the time that I have. Yeah, dude, that's crazy. That's good advice, though. You can find something that is going to take your time. That's actually challenging. That's good outside of community, because community is probably one of the reasons why you're not drunk all day, every day, and probably not divorced right now. So that's really good. I will say, let's bring it back in. You obviously transitioned. You obviously had some adversity. You obviously were resilient based off of certain things. But I got to ask, in my opinion, I think we're normalizing. Well, let me backtrack. Suicide is at the forefront of a lot of things now. And I don't know why, but I got to ask, what is it that they're struggling with, and what is it that you can provide them in terms of tools for their tool bag, so that when they do transition, they're not facing the same things and they're not taking that 30-inch step in the wrong direction. And then we'll get into the last little bit.
Yeah, man. Thing is, I've lost more guys to suicide than I did in combat. So like 5 suicides in the last 10 years or so, and 3 or 4 I think in when I was serving. But I mean, that's a lot easier to deal with. Like a pressure plate's a pressure plate no matter what. But like you'll see suddenly on Facebook or Instagram that one of your boys like hung himself. You're like, oh God. It's like, that's not the same. There's like an emptiness there that I mean, and you lose touch and stuff, but I don't know yourself well enough, I think, to like seek the help you need. Like I've been in and out of like, outpatient treatment for depression and anxiety and things. I mean, granted, I definitely think I have a little bit of brain damage from a bunch of explosions, but like that's neither here nor there. I mean, also being concussed doing mixed martial arts wasn't super helpful either, but like knew enough about where I usually am at to know that like, oh, this is not like, if this goes anywhere, if it gets any worse, like I'm definitely gonna start a pistol. So we gotta take early action when you start feeling that way. And also, your friends aren't the best people to get help from. I will tell you though, I have a rough perspective on the VA and generally psychology in general. They offered me a handful of pills when I first went into the VA, and I was like, get the fuck out of here with that. Absolutely not. It's like, we can do CBT, we can do like, I was educated enough to know like there's probably some things we could do, like cognitive behavioral therapy. I did light therapy, transcranial magnetic stimulation to heal some of the damaged areas in my brain. I did neural feedback training, which is pretty cool. And all this designed to like help you self-regulate better and not seek, the comfort of a pill bottle. And I don't trust these fools. I just don't. Somebody had the DSN for right, and they had like another book in their hand reading off-label prescriptions of certain drugs they wanted to give me, and they're just sitting there. It's like, what do you think about that? I'm like, I don't know, doc. This is your job. I'm not doing any of this because you have to look it up in the book.
1 second, Adrian. Yeah. 1 second. Exhibit CDO, Gunny Garcia. What's this force? Okay, what's up? Okay, sounds good. Thanks, boss. Appreciate it. All right. Sorry about that. I'll edit it out. But you said, how are you going to read me a list? You're supposed to be the provider. Jesus, what the frick?
Yeah. I couldn't handle that at all. So I'm like, all right, so I'm not going to trust you with my mental health because, you read all the like the downsides of that. You could also increase the suicidal thoughts and your anxiety by taking Prozac, for instance, which they wanted to give me. I'm like, well, that seems kind of like counterproductive, don't you think? Like if that's one of the leading side effects is like you might feel even worse than you do before. So all right, like I can suffer. I'm good at this, being, you're a Marine, you can figure it out. Like you've been in worse situations and like this one just in your own head. Okay, cool. Because on paper, everything was going fine. I'm in school, I'm being paid okay. I'm well fed, no one's trying to kill me actively. Cool. But I think that there might be I do blame like the colleges of education and psychology for treating veterans like wounded puppies. Like they didn't really encourage the behaviors or like psychology that the Marine Corps made me strong with, right? So like I would say try to shape your own care if you can, and let them know that you'll not tolerate being talked down to or like coddled like a baby. It's like, I'm a warrior, first off. And like, if you don't have a good like track record with treating warriors, it's not just giving them a bunch of shit to eat, like all those pills I'm talking about. I'm like, I don't know, like seek somewhere else, look somewhere else. I mean, I went to the gym, I started training and doing martial arts. It seemed to be a workout for like, it seemed to scratch all the itches that I needed to scratch. But like that was also a compliment to me actually seeking care through the VA. And even though it was subpar, it gave me a good framework. The doc I had finally at the very end, he's a former naval corpsman. He was great. He loved Marines. Talking to him it was actually a really good way to like readjust and refocus some things. He was a brilliant guy, but without that, I mean, we're not being treated by our own, and they don't really, and that to me is like a real like disservice to us. So like if you can seek out like, I mean, it's going to be really rare to find a naval corpsman it's going to be your new psychologist. But when I did my transcranial magnetic stimulation, another Navy doc was doing that same thing. He was great. He was in Afghanistan. They held up in an old school, and they made that into their little hospital. And he was great. He gave me a couple books to read. Smart guy, Dr. Will Forte, I think. Tall guy, beautiful. Honestly, he was one of the most beautiful men I've ever seen. Anyway.
I do appreciate it. I know suicide is kind of sensitive to others, and some. I know that it's near and dear to your heart, more now than it was while you were in uniform, which is crazy to me. I gotta ask, you got about a minute left. Last save rounds, some for the listeners, and I will preface, we have to do this again, Adrian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do this again. Okay, so last minute, last save rounds, hit it. Whatever you got to say, get it off your chest.
Hopefully next week I'll be able to provide you guys. I don't know. I'm still fundraising, so I started a nonprofit called Keep Fighting that helps funds veterans transition out of the military into martial arts gyms around the country. I've had to take a pause on that since I've had a new job and the pandemic started. The goal is to crowdfund for. I mean, you need $1,200 per veteran per year to get them into a fight gym, and that's not that hard to do. I mean, 10 people give $100, we're halfway there. Like it's really, I think it works. I think I've enough research backed. It's mostly in the vein of like recreation therapy, but ultimately I've been trying to build a network of finding veteran run gyms or veteran friendly gyms where I can either argue for a discount or just have them built up. You can probably very shortly, I'll have the website up again, and I'll have a bunch of various gyms you can go to and research on your own. I'm just trying to create like an interactive map for that. But the goal for that is just, I know that it worked for me, and it'll give you a good community to fall into that actually appreciates and respect your values, where you don't have to, you don't have to censor yourself. You can just be the veteran as you are, and I think that it works wonders, so that's the main goal. I'll get everything together, and I'll have you maybe link into your notes for your website. Yeah, other than that, like that was my motivation in 2020 when I first got out of my grads program. Was I'm gonna use this research for good. I'm gonna make this thing into and I have a documentary as well on the on YouTube. I can send that to you.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It essentially tells the story of the veterans that I met at Subfighter MMA.
That's what's up. It's good. It's always good to give back to the community. You find purpose in that. Ladies and gentlemen, Spit Talk, blowing pits in the pins with your host Gunny G. We're service members help service centers. Follow, like, subscribe, ever get your podcast. I'm also social media platforms. Let us know what we're doing. Me and Adrian, though, we out. I'll talk to you later, okay?
See y'all. Yeah, man.
Later.
Absolutely.